Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective, hosted by me, myself, and I, Troy Hooper. This is the show about hospitality, hospitality leadership, and it is sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants, 520 restaurants in 16 now countries to be, growing here in North America. And we're always thankful and grateful that Pepper Lunch supports this show. We have another fantastic show for you today. Somebody I know well, somebody I've known for a long, long time, somebody I've worked with in the past, somebody who has a lot of cool history and really cool ideas about how culinary can impact our lives. And we want to talk with our friend today, Nikki Newman. Nikki, Chef Nikki Newman, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. So I entered into that with a little bit of history. We'll get into that. We'll probably reference back to our history and time we've spent together in the past working on some projects. But first, we always start the show by asking the first question, and that is, what does hospitality mean to you?
I think that that's a rather broad category. Obviously, it can mean so many different things to different people. But I think then the larger scope of it, it's it's almost like a welcoming feeling, like how how you host people, how you welcome people, embrace people, and treat people, the experiences you provide for people, the feeling that that they feel when they walk away from you. Basically, just it's a community, like how you embrace people and bring them into your world.
Tell us a story about whether it's your childhood or early experience in the culinary world. Tell us a quick story about how you came to understand what hospitality meant to you, how you came to believe what you just said, and how do you learn how to express that? How do you choose to make people feel welcome in your restaurants?
I'd say going back to my like youngest, memories, it probably would not be restaurants or hotels like experiences that would have driven that belief in hospitality, but more family members or going to say a family member's house for Thanksgiving or Christmas and like the scene and the stage that they set when you walked in the door, when they welcomed you in and they had all these things laid out for you and the way they treated you all night long and brought you into their world and went out of their way to give you this amazing evening and brought all the family together and brought everyone together to be like, we're going to celebrate. We're all going to drink this. We're all going to eat that. You can have anything and everything you want. We're going to stuff you full of food. Just that amazing feeling of being welcomed and treated, treated like you're extremely special.
Yeah, most people that come on the show, they usually go back to a childhood memory. And mine I've said it once or twice, but in a little more detail. My family liked to have a good time and they like to throw a party. And you look at old pictures from before I was born, and there's just gatherings. There's gatherings in the same house, my grandparents' house in Miami, and that house had a four-stool bar in the living room. And I don't mean a wet bar. I don't mean the cute bougie shit they're building in Texas McMansions now. I mean, you could sit at the bar, put your elbows on the bar, and there was a sink and a refrigerator and an ice maker and everything. And it was a bar and like a saloon style. So, growing up, just hosting folks all the time. The door was always open. The kids from the neighborhood were welcome to come in and feed themselves. The friends were invited over on Friday or Saturday night. And not even around sports or football or not just New Year's Eve or Thanksgiving, but
Right.
just a regular Friday or Saturday night. People like to have a good time. That's my earliest memory, and so that's why I wanted to become a chef. Is my dad would let me get in the kitchen and show me how to roll ham and cube cheese. It's certainly not the charcuterie grazing boards of today, but
Right.
the old fashioned ham, salami, and cheese plates.
Right.
But I love doing that. I love being a part of making that, setting that stage, right? Making people feel welcome. I would pass around. I would pretend to be like a freaking, a banquet waiter and go around and pass around, crackers and cheese and stuff. So I think many people have that kind of experience, and it really does set the tone. I mean, certainly set the tone for me on how to be social and welcome people and host people and what it meant, right, to be prideful in helping other people make memories. And here you and I are in the food and restaurant and hotel business all of our careers. So it
Right.
it had a lasting impact, right? So let's catch the audience up on who Chef Nikki Newman is. Tell us a little bit about your history. Give us a quick bio, a rundown. Why did you get into the culinary scene, and where did you do it, and where has it taken you? And give us some high level bio on your career.
Yeah, I think that as much as I did love spending time in the kitchen with my family growing up, I think that it actually, ultimately, it was an accident. It was just a part-time job in college. But then even after I finished my degree, I just loved restaurants and just never left them and kept working in restaurants and different types of restaurants and trying new, progressively higher cuisines, going from, fast casual to more fine dining, and then to casinos, and then to hotels. And then went back and got a degree in, culinary arts. And from there, just kind of moved around the country from New Hampshire to California to Denver, Colorado to Tennessee to just all over the country, working in different hotels, different styles of restaurants, different resorts. And then here I am 30 years later, still working in kitchens.
Well, let's elevate that a little bit. You're not just working in kitchens. You've been an executive chef for a very long time. You've worked in some massive resort properties, doing enormous volumes of business, and everywhere you go. And I would say a hallmark of your career, as long as I've known you, has really been a builder or rebuilder. In Breckenridge, it was about rebuilding and rebranding a property and starting a new concept of a restaurant that would be attractive from the outside of the guests outside of the hotel. I remember when you went to California, beachfront resort, and the mandate was local California fare. And how deep you went into that. You showed me your research just for your interview alone. About where do the fruits come from? Where's the fruits? What are the vegetables grown in the region? What kind of fish is available? And you really curated a menu and an experience in that restaurant at that resort solely around a very regionalized local source thing. I think that's been a hallmark of your career. Talk a little bit about why local or direct source has been important, and what that brings to the restaurant, the property, the hotel, the resort, and why you've been focused on that, and why how that's impacted your success or the success of the properties you've been at.
I definitely think it's something that guests are, looking for. It obviously is a nice selling piece, a marketing tool, but then you're also just kind of paying homage to the area in which you're living, in which the guests maybe are visiting a hotel, so they're coming to an area and don't know that region well and don't know what is grown in that area, what is local, or what is coming out of the sea, or what is hunted down the road. So it's nice to kind of showcase that to the guests, so when they come to that area, they can be kind of immerse themselves into that region. And so then as a chef, it's just a ton of fun. I mean, maybe it's personally, I enjoy the research side of that. So it's fun to move somewhere new and dive into the history of the region and what the farmers are growing, what, are industry crops in that area, something that maybe the town was built around, and from early settlers. So I just love diving into that kind of thing. And then obviously you are, going back to that sense of community, you're adding to that region. You're giving back to the community. You're buying from those farmers that are right down the road, that maybe their family, like their third, fourth generation or something. You're just you're adding back to the community. You're buying from local fishermen, so it's good overall for maybe the economy, for the guest experience, and then it's also, you take pride in those the ingredients that you're bringing into the kitchen. So it's great for like your cooks, the chefs, your servers, and get behind the story of something that they didn't even realize maybe was grown in that region, that they didn't know it was local to their area. So it's an experience. It's the whole experience. It's just something that, and like I said, that's marketable too. But I just enjoy the whole like the whole background behind that, digging into the research.
Creativity of it all,
Yeah.
really. Yeah. So you've worked at some really big hotel resort properties, and you might have had some leeway in bringing in some of those ingredients, or maybe one of the venues was able to sort of be crafted in that way. But how
Right.
have you been able to take that mindset and scale it? Like, so a lot of our
Mm.
listeners are in the restaurant industry, a lot of executives in the restaurant industry, and that's always nice when the Michelin chef can source any ingredient anywhere they want, create and craft the menu, and people will come and they'll pay anything. But the reality is you're usually in a scenario where the business has to make money. You have
Right.
to make it marketable. It has to be approachable, has to be interesting, and something the consumer, the guests want. How do you navigate that line? How do you go from that really crafty, really hyper unique
Right.
single source environment, but how do you scale that so that it's affordable in a banquet environment or a
Right.
conference environment or a hotel guest environment?
Obviously, yeah, it's not always affordable or makes sense, monetarily to buy like small batch items or small local, line caught fish. But one thing you can do is just building recipes that or regional dishes, something that maybe an area is known for, and then buying product that works within that recipe. And so just showcasing regional dishes and putting those on banquet menus. Like this is something that this area is known for. This certain sauce, this certain kind of like meat, they cook it this certain way. The way in which it's cooked, like a tri-tip on a Santa Maria grill, like just things of that sort where you're like, here's, you're not buying the small locally sourced item, but you're like, this is what is traditional in this region. And let me like showcase this on a plate or on a banquet, menu.
Yeah, that's actually pretty fascinating. You're treating the ingredient in an authentic or regionalized or
Right.
a way paying homage to the
Right.
origin of the place, the space, the look, I was in Denver I got home from Denver yesterday. Love you, Denver, but you don't got to put green chili and chili verde on everything. Like the
Everything.
eggs, the potatoes, the everything for
The
breakfast except for
burrito,
the
the
bacon.
soup, like,
It had green chili on it. And I was like, and if it didn't have green chili, it actually had poblano peppers on. I
pepper
was
in
like,
it.
okay,
Yes.
guys, can we have one bite of food that so there's sort of like doing that, but then doing it, I don't know,
A
a
little
little too
overkill.
far. And yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
you should. So I like that though. I like especially like the cooking techniques too, right? At the end of the day, what you're talking about is it builds an identity, right? And when you talk about marketing that identity, you don't want to go to a resort or to a restaurant in a place you're visiting and, I'm in Denver and they're serving, I hate when I see this. I saw it in Denver too. In Nashville too, California something, uh,
Right.
New York style pizza in Kansas City. I'm sure there's fantastic New York style pizza in
Oh,
Kansas
right.
City, but not at the Marriott, right? Like, or
Right.
whatever. So, I
Right.
think it's important. And I think that differentiates to show that authenticity, show that localization. I think it's pretty interesting. Let's get a little controversial. I have a couple more topics for you. Controversial in that I've got a couple of friends like Scott Turner over in the UK and Andy Jones who they work with hotels and resorts. They work with leaders in the F&B business, both on the hospitality and the retail restaurant side. And they talk a lot about what's wrong with F&B in general, but what's wrong with F&B businesses, particularly around resorts and hotels. And you spend a lot of your career in that environment. Tell me a little bit about the properties that you've gone to and some of the changes you might have made and why you saw there was an opportunity to improve that offering, improve that menu or that branding of that restaurant. I kind of want to illuminate that side of the business for the folks. I do have quite a few friends and some folks that might listen to this that are on the hotel and hospitality side of the F&B business.
I mean, I've definitely walked into places. I had I guess, a corporate F&B guy, quite a while back, tell me it was a very basic concept that he's like, you can't be everything to everybody. And it was, we're so used to like having these hotel menus where you do just want to cater to everybody. That's someone that is traveling from New York, Chicago, or like Texas, and they have their kid with them. They're like, okay, you should have like all of these options because you are trying to make everybody happy. And he was like, no, we're not trying to make everybody happy. He's like, you're in California, serve local regional dishes. He's like, period. And he's like, that's not what they didn't come here to eat spaghetti or New York style pizza. So I kind of tried to take that and run with that in every place I've gone to since, and pare down the menu so that it's not 80 items on the menu of a little bit of everything from all over the country, and then make it more regional. You're like, this person has probably been to, you have a lot of business travelers. They've been to a Hilton in Miami. They've been to a Hilton in New York. They've been to a Hilton in Kansas City. Now they're at a Hilton, say in Breckenridge, or they're at a Hilton in California. Like, what differentiates that? Like, they woke up this morning, like, they flew in on the plane. They don't even know what state they're in. How do they know when they look at your menu what state they're in? They're gonna be like, oh, this is amazing. I can get fresh, I can get a bison burger, I can get trout, I can get, oh, I'm in Colorado. And then they're like, oh, I'm in California, I can get fish tacos, I can get this fresh opa, I can get, this amazing fresh, vegetables that aren't seasonal right now, but they are in California all year round.
And California avocados, have to plug that for the family
Right.
business. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of like a philosophy I think I've taken with me since then, and like gone into places and just been like, we don't need this, all of these things that are just generic, I guess, generic
Yeah.
items that people built their menu around. Like, let's please everybody. Here's a whole laundry list of generic items that everybody loves. I'm like, that's not what I'm about. That's not what I want to see served on the menu.
Well, let's hopefully get the attention of some people in that side of the business. Why don't more properties, resorts, hotels, whether they're business hotels in a central downtown area or they're out on the outskirts and the business parks, why don't more hotels look at their F&B that way and take advantage of those opportunities? What is it about this generic whitewash Americana menu that they just seem to stick with?
Yeah, and I don't know because I've worked predominantly for one, hotel chain, but I do think that, and I'm not sure this is still the case. I know a lot of hotel chains have core menus that maybe a corporate chef or like some, corporate F&B has like kind of sent out across the country, and they're like, here are your core menu items. You need to have two of these, three of these, one of these. So I think that that was the case in the past. I'm not sure how much that's the case, currently. So I think that maybe limits people on how creative they can get on their menus. Other than that, or maybe just the lack of creativity. I think there's also, whether this is, speaking of controversy, whether this is true or not, there are definitely some biases on whether or not you get strong creative chefs working in the hotel industry versus them working in small, or like Michelin
Yeah.
starred restaurants or James Beard restaurants or private restaurants where you have like, so they're kind of looked, maybe not looked down upon, but it's just looked at differently. And there might be some truth to that. So the creativity level is not there. They have someone come in that manages the kitchen. And so you have these like I said, whitewashed menu of basic items that this chef is putting out and they're making it happen every day, but the creativity is not there and not behind it to drive that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of it is that corporate mandate, right? That brand standard, as you say. But when the brand standard allows for localized or regionalized or some flexibility in the menu, or at least one of the venues is
Right.
allowed. I think one of the things since I was in the hotel side of the business that's been a positive from the industry is the advent of all of these sub brands, all of these super niche boutique brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Hilton and they have all of these, the Moxie and the AC Hotel or the Element Hotel or all these things that between Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott, they're all sort of created these super niche brands.
Right.
Those have some identity. Those have,
Right.
they sort of live the neighborhood in some cases. And so they allow for that. But yeah, I mean, when I go to Denver, I know I'm in Denver to your point of being in every city every week. I actually some day wake up and the inside of the room, actually, one of the reasons I stay in these unique properties. I try to stay in those boutique tapestry curio type properties is because I can wake up and it's not just another, blank open hotel room. But even in Nashville, boy, there was not a lot of Southern. Now I know Nashville's grown up and gotten
Right.
a little bit more cosmopolitan. There was hot chicken and there might be one other thing, but
Right.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of Southern food necessarily as a choice there. I think there's worried about stigmatism around the healthfulness of Southern food,
I
but
think that's fair.
yeah, I think you're spot on with all that. You did something. You were a first to do something. Your property, the last property that you're head of, took in a ghost kitchen concept. You worked with Franklin Junction as I think the first hotel in America to take on one or more brands, multiple brands from a ghost kitchen creator, a virtual brand creator. Talk a little bit about how that went and how that fit into the hotel atmosphere and business. And was that a positive for the property to attract outside business, or was it really still internal guest business that took advantage of the variety of the menu?
We did take on a couple different brands, and I think that given the some of maybe the limitations coming out of COVID, it was helpful to offer more variety to our guests and different time periods, and to try to take advantage of Uber Eats and some other delivery companies in the area and the businesses surrounding the hotel. So we were just kind of branching out, trying to look for a little more like incremental revenue. And then we did have internal guests too. We had QR codes like around the hotel and all the hotel rooms. So I don't know that. I don't know. I can't. I'm not sure that I could speak to whether or not it was successful or not. It kind of didn't. I wouldn't say it was going to make or break us. but
Yeah.
it added probably more labor than revenue at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
But maybe it just wasn't the right place, the right time, or the right concept. You know,
Right. Like anything.
right?
What are your thoughts on the future of that kind of thing, though? Can the right brands and menus be added to a hotel food and beverage program that would offer enough variety that the internal guest or the nearby consumer, uh, it might make sense for them? And should that be a branded thing, or is that
Yeah,
something you think, like, is it the power of the branding or and the awareness of the brand, or is it that people search by menu and I'm just in the mood for pizza versus
right.
burger versus chicken sandwich?
I think that there's definitely I mean I think that it's a fantastic idea and there's a lot of potential there for multiple hotels notoriously have large spaces. We have usually have larger kitchens. We have extra space that's underutilized depending on the age of the kitchen. We have some massive kitchens with whole areas that are just underutilized. So it makes sense to rent out that area or to utilize that space and push out another concept. And I think maybe some of it is the branding and just and at the time, some of those apps are maybe a little saturated with
Yeah.
concepts. And so it is, what someone is looking for. But there was definitely a time period, and it might still be like, as far as I know, that there's just, if you go on to an Uber Eats or DoorDash, there's, one of 16 different grilled cheese restaurants or,
Right.
different burger concepts, sandwich concept, wings concepts. So it is kind of hard to stand out. So I think it does take some marketing, hitting the right people in your hotel in the right area to put that out there. But to have those extra options and those extra concepts, I think it's a great idea. Like great, there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being really strategic too, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you're going to add something to your repertoire, your offering, even if it's only digital or online, don't do a wing concept in your hotel or your restaurant if there's 7 other wing concepts within 5 miles. Like,
right,
don't try to compete with what's already there. Fill the
right,
gaps that are missing.
exactly.
A good friend of mine, Andre Venner, is one of the co-founders and recently stepped down as CEO of Doghouse. And Doghouse, some 60 restaurants around America. But in early before COVID, they were testing it, and during COVID, they ramped it up. They ended up creating 5 or 6 virtual concepts within the restaurant using the existing ingredients. Basically, they just
Yeah,
said, "Look, we serve burgers, brats, hot dogs, and I'm maybe chicken sandwiches. Let's create a concept
off of
around
the,
each
yeah,
piece of that menu so that when people are looking for something, we can compete, right? Digitally compete for that search." Turns out they had never, of course, thought about doing breakfast. So they created a breakfast burrito brand, badass breakfast burritos. And
nice.
today, it's their number one selling product,
That's awesome.
online, right? And in many stores. And they actually sell that product more after 10 p.m. than they do all day, right? So
All
it's
right.
become a late night craving grab, right? 10
Yeah,
to 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. They're selling the hell out of them if there's a university any nearby, right? Or a hospital nearby. So who would have thought? And here's the point. It cost them the addition of one ingredient
right,
to add an entire breakfast burrito brand to their portfolio, serve it online, eventually serve it in the restaurant as a separate menu, and to be able to do massive volume, they added tortilla shells.
right.
They already
No,
had egg because they put fried egg on burgers or
okay.
sandwiches, right? They have all the accompanying vegetables and meats. They're already
Right.
serving bacon on burgers and hot dogs and brats, right? So they chorizo and things like that. So literally, they added tortilla shell to
No.
generate what ended up being a massively successful side brand.
That's
Um,
yeah, that's brilliant. And like it is, and yeah, that's it's key. It's just that cross utilization of products that you already have in place that you're using. So you can make multiple concepts on the same base ingredients.
Yeah, same line, same crew, same base ingredients, ideally, right? Without adding complexity and cost, but it could be incremental revenue that has a high margin on it because you're utilizing what's already there. So
Right,
I
exactly.
still think there's a lot of opportunity. I think it just comes down to strategic thinking
Yeah, I
and
think no, I
doing the
I
right
I,
thing.
I agree for sure.
Let's move into an area you're pretty passionate about. It goes along the lines of the direct source and the known source and understanding where your food comes from. You've spent a lot of time thinking about that. You've created a lot of menus. I've worked with you on a couple of those types of menus on different projects. Why is that something you're super interested in? I mean, you went as far as getting a certification. Tell us about that.
I did. I got a holistic nutrition certificate. Just I think a lot of that just stems from my own wanting to eat healthier. Just try the older you get, the more you start realizing you're on like the second half of your life. All of a sudden, life doesn't look so long and shiny anymore. It's like, oh, like what can I do to extend my life? I want to live to be 80, 90, 100. So I think that's kind of a lot where that stemmed from was just personal selfishness of not wanting to die. So I just tried to figure out ways. I just wanted to learn more and more about the nutrition side of that, like what it was that I was consuming and eating, and what little things, that would the little things that I could do, the little changes that I could make that would, could extend my life or, just maybe like stave off, certain diseases or because I do have some heart disease that runs in the family. So things of that sort kind of sent me probably down that path originally. And then just once again, like the research, I just love learning about different things. And so I just kind of kept going with that.
In thinking about that and bringing that to your culinary inspiration, how do you infuse that into your menus when you're serving 1,000 people in a conference banquet or a wedding or something of that nature? And does that is that something you put out front? Do they know that? Or are you just doing that out of pride that, hey, I can provide cleaner, healthier for you food, better nutrition for you. If you're going to pay me to cook for you, I want to do something that's better for you. And by the way,
Right.
have taste great. Or are you putting that out there as sort of a selling point, not only for you and your career, but for the venue or the menu that you're promoting?
I would say one of the things that I've done is I went gluten free probably back in 2011, maybe, but I didn't really incorporate that probably till over the years. But that's definitely something that I do now regularly in my banquet menus for 1,000 people, 1,500 people, 500, whatever it might be, is that I've just kind of made adjustments over the years on where I just don't make, I'll make sauces with, say, a corn slurry instead of your basic roux. There's
Mm.
just, and I just don't incorporate a lot of flour where unnecessarily into things. And so my sauces just, it's little things, like, unless you're like purposely encrusting something, there's really no reason for anything to have flour other than sauces traditionally. So that's something we do promote on the front end. We let our guests know, our clients know. So like, oh, what can we do about these people with dietary needs? And we're like, oh, don't worry, the whole menu is already gluten free. And they're
Wow.
just like, oh, that's amazing. We don't even have to worry about these other guests. We don't have to like hand out little tickets and worry about the guest experience and the service being slowed down while, someone's like, oh, I need the gluten free menu or I need the specialty menu. So that's something that I have been able to incorporate and that we do promote on the front end.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And you're right. Look, you just solved for a lot of people and they eat delicious food and they don't know
Right,
that it doesn't have gluten, then okay, no benefit to the public, right? In knowledge, but there's a benefit to their body and they
right,
may feel better in an hour later and they don't know why. It's, maybe they weren't
right,
salted with a ton of gluten, right? In everything they didn't even know, because most people don't know how many things have some of these ingredients, not just gluten, but certainly
right,
other types of ingredients that could be allergenic or assaulting to the immune system or whatever.
right.
I think that's really fascinating. Is that something that the properties have benefited from, the business has benefited from? Do you see a positive feedback loop coming from the consumers or the planners of these events saying, "Hey, that's really cool. I'm going to promote that. My guests are going to find that to be very interesting."
Yeah, I definitely think that the party planners or event planners and or bride and groom, like whatever it might be, if it's a wedding or a large event, they definitely appreciate that and like and love that we do that. It's something that they can then like tell their guests or their client to say, "Don't worry, all of this is going to be gluten free." And so then it's almost like they're promoting health when really it was just going to be gluten free regardless. But it's something they can feel good about telling their guests about.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think more and more properties and venues and chefs should take that license and not see it as a risk, but as an opportunity for sure. All right, as we wind down our conversation, I usually just pick random things as not preordained. I try to take a little bit about what I know about you and apply it to the show in a couple of random questions at the end. So let's see this. Where do the best peaches in America come from?
All right, Palisade peaches in west on the western slope in Colorado.
Wait a minute, not Georgia?
Yeah,
All right, well, we just eliminated you from probably ever being able to be a chef in Georgia.
I know. Right?
Wait, not South Carolina peaches? What?
I know
Okay. They are fantastic and they're enormous, right? They're huge and juicy
exactly.
and mineral. You taste the minerality of the mountains in them. I think they're very stony, right, for a stone fruit.
Well, they're so sweet because they get the cold air, and they those cold evenings that
Yeah.
bring out more of the sugar in the peach. So good.
Okay. What's your favorite fish dish? You spent some time in California, coastal cuisine. What's your favorite fish or fish dish? Maybe something we're all not thinking about when we go to the restaurant.
God, that's hard. I mean, I love all kinds of fish. I'm like my favorite fish. Like I still keep going back to it. Is I really just love Arctic char. But I mean, obviously, that's not even like a coastal or an ocean fish. But I don't know, that's a tough one.
How do you prepare Arctic char? If somebody goes out of their way and finds some Arctic char and says, "I got to try that. I've never had that. I'm fascinated."
I mean, I just love a basic like a skin on, salt and pepper, and then just a nice crispy skin, and then like a quick flip on the other side. But mid rare,
There
amazing
you go.
salt, basic salt
All
and pepper. That's
au
all.
natural. Bring out the flavors. I love it. Very good. You've been known to be a bit of an outdoorsy person. I'm a Tacoma guy. You've been a Jeep girl. So where are we at on that? Who wins that debate these days? Or if I offer to buy you a vehicle tomorrow and it has to be an off-roader, what is it? And it could be not one of those two things. What's the off-road vehicle towing the motorcycle?
Currently, it's a Jeep Grand Cherokee that's kind of souped up a little bit, but I'm not opposed to it. The Toyota 4Runners are nice. The Tacomas are nice.
You're being very politically down the middle here, I say. You're being very purple, as they say.
I like them all.
Big tires, can go
Yeah,
places, haul
exactly.
stuff, right?
That's all that matters, really.
Right. Well, Nikki, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. I really appreciate you bringing your experience, your wisdom, showing us that doing some things in a certain way do have basic business benefits, even though it seems like it might be the harder way to do things. I think we've learned a lot today, and grateful to have you on, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.